Good morning, everyone. This is my very first time on a podcast. My name is Tasch, and I know that there are a lot of people out there talking about the journey of coming home, coming back to self. But the difference with myself and a lot of people out there is I have actually walked this walk. I have been to the bottom of the pits and risen like a phoenix. Why am I doing a podcast? I'm doing a podcast because over the last 4 years, I have been coaching so many people, hundreds of people, in their blueprint, their programming, their conditioning. And nobody has a clue what that is until their life turns to chaos. Marriages fail, relationships change, children coming into this, the dynamics makes a difference. Friendships change, how you react to things. So what I want to do is I want to go back to the beginning, nearly 9 years ago, an incident that changed my life forever. And this incident has taken me to where I am today. At the time, it was the most horrendous thing I could think of going through. May 19, 2017, I was a paramedic in Sydney, had been for nearly 30 years. I was towards the end of my shift, and we had a mental health patient decide that he wanted to take our lives. It was my day to drive that day. I was driving with my last patient towards the hospital. And 1 minute I'm chatting to the relative, and then the next minute I feel like I've lost complete control of the vehicle. It felt like something had fallen out of the sky. I had no idea what had happened. All I knew that was I had no control. I could taste blood. Everything went white. Everything was surreal for what felt like forever, but it was only obviously a few seconds. All I knew is that I lost control of the vehicle. It was going on the other side of the road. I had no idea where we were going to land. The universe stepped in. I saw a tree coming, but a gutter had actually stopped us. What we found out after a lot of commotion and a lot of chaos at the time, this person had a vendetta against an ambulance. Not me personally, I just happened to be driving that day. And he turned his lights off and hit us at 100 kilometres head on. So I was trapped. I had multiple fractures. I had a lot of injuries. I had no clue what was ahead of me after this. That accident took me down a really, really, really dark path. Physical injuries I can cope with. Physical injuries, we can heal those. We can, get help for those. It's the mental. The mental got me, and I ended up in a facility for 6 months with severe depression, suicidal ideation. I didn't know who I was anymore because that night was the end of my career. There was no build up to it. There was no, I think I'm going to leave. That was the end of my career. I had no clue that was going to be the case. I was getting back up. I was going to get back to work in the next week or two. And trust me, I attempted, but I just couldn't do it. Anyway, let's skip forward. After some time in the hospital, getting a lot of healing and a lot of work, I then had the privilege of having someone help me that was on a holistic and a spiritual path. And they helped me understand that we as humans have no clue what we're handed as children. Between the ages of 0 to 7, we are handed a blueprint. And that blueprint comes from our parents, our caregivers, our teachers, our siblings, our friends, our other relatives, grandparents. And that blueprint determines our stories, our beliefs, our values, and our identities. In those 4 components, that's what we call gatekeepers, right? Over the years, you keep building on those beliefs, those stories, even if they weren't your stories and they weren't your beliefs. That's what you build on. That's all you know, because no one's told you any different. So for nearly 50 years, I was of the belief system that I was handed. Man, what a wake-up call. What an absolute wake-up call. Just thinking about the decisions, the choices, the things I did over that 49 years before my accident. They were all resulted from a very dysfunctional upbringing, abuse, alcohol, all forms of abuse. I had no idea the stuff that I had stored within me, that I had no idea how to handle. I didn't even know they were there. A lot of stuff is suppressed, which is why a lot of people forget their childhood. This is not a blame game. This is not, I've got bad parents. When we understand how we pick our parents, we choose the body that we're coming to, our souls choose our bodies. Our souls choose the upbringing. Our souls choose the parents that we're having for the lessons and the learning that we need, that we didn't learn in past lives. And this might be out there for a lot of people, but over the last 9 years, I've done so much work in this field that there's no going back. I have healed so much generational trauma and wounds, and I'm helping now my children and friends and clients do the same, because you can't fix what you don't know, right? The damage we do to ourselves because we live in fight or flight, or we live in chaos constantly. Like, for a great example, right? And this is just going to be the beginning of my show. I am going to go into each pillar and modality that I teach over time to help you understand. But just to give you a great example of me growing up in chaos, unpredictable violence, abuse, scarcity, poverty, resentment, anger, judgment, all those things. That's what I grew up in. Walking into a job like the ambulance service was like coming home. It was so familiar. It felt normal, even though it wasn't. It was unpredictable. It was risk-taking. It was unsafe at times. The emotions were high and low. People used to say, how can you walk into those jobs? I don't know, I just do. When my nervous system grew up in fight or flight and constant chaos and constant uncertainty, that's what my body got used to. So the job actually was what suited me, which is probably why I stayed in there for so long and functioned for so long. But living in fight or flight, having been abused in several ways, having lived a toxic, dysfunctional upbringing, turned me into somebody that was a people pleaser, a procrastinator, somebody who self-abandoned, who put everyone else before me, put everyone else before my family because it was a way of getting validation. And when you grow up with uncertainty and love's on and off, it's not, It's not consistent. You look for love in all the wrong places. You look for anything that looks like love, and then you find the evidence to support yourself that that is love. And you make some pretty poor choices in life. And again, this is not a blame game, and it's nothing I can change, but it's certainly something that I can fix now. And I help people do this, and I help people stay together. And I say this all the time. This information should be taught in schools. This information should be given to people before they get into serious relationships, have children. Because this is the thing. We are walking into relationships, workplaces, friendships, having expectations of those people. They don't know our wounds. We don't know their wounds. We have no understanding of what they how they were brought up or what they were brought up in. They have no idea what we were brought up in. Half the times we don't know because we think it's normal. The yelling, the screaming, the belittling, the, toughen up, old generation, I'll give you something to cry about. Kids should be seen and not heard. What do you think? Money grows on trees. Like there's this constant negativity in our world. So that's what we bring into our relationships. And one of the examples I use is when we go to a doctor, we give him a history, we give him symptoms, we give him all those things to help diagnose us, right? What we do when we walk into a relationship is we expect them, like a doctor, to diagnose us. But what we're not giving them is no symptoms, no history, no anything. It's like walking into the doctor and saying, fix me. But you're not getting my history and you're not getting my symptoms. Figure it out along the way. That's pretty poor, right? But that's what we do. And then when something happens within our relationships, our friendships, our workplaces, we blame them. But they're not aware of our triggers. They're not aware of what is going on within us. They're wounds. And the reason I want to run this podcast, is I want to help people drop these masks. I want to help people understand their blueprint. I want to help people move forward and come home to self. This has been the toughest 9 years of my life. I have lost a lot, but I have gained so much. And unfortunately, with growth comes a lot of loss. A lot of people fall away because when you grow, when you heal, and when you start to set boundaries, the people that have benefited from you not having any boundaries don't like it. So you become difficult. You've changed. Yeah, I have changed. A lot changed me. So for 3 and a bit years, I did a lot of work, a lot of inner work. 2020, I found myself in a relationship with someone, which was what pushed me over the edge. This person was a very, very dark, coercive narcissist. And guess what? That was my dad. I found someone like my dad. I always found avoidant men that put me second, men that would compare me to their first wives, men that would cheat on me. But this is all because that was what was familiar to me. What I saw as an upbringing and a role model and what was normal was the way my dad treated my mum. So I would look for people that would treat me well, but my inner workings would attract that. This person in 2020 absolutely annihilated me. It was only 8 months, but it was 8 months of absolute hell. There was abuse. There was so many other things, which I won't go into. But this person took me down the path of my awakening. I had a Kundalini awakening, which completely changed my life. And I know people out there are like, she hasn't changed. She's just using the excuse of the accident and doing some healing. Well, let me tell you, that version of Tasch doesn't exist anymore. That version of Tasch left a long time ago. And each time I heal and each time I grow and each time I do more and more inner work, those versions of Tasch don't exist. Tasch doesn't put up with disrespect anymore. Tasch doesn't put up with, one-sided friendships. Tasch doesn't put up with manipulation and lies. Tasch used to. Tash used to do that because she wanted to be a part of something. She wanted to belong. She needed validation. She needed security. She needed love. But it was all external. After 2020, that was the big wake-up call. And since then, I have been on a mission, and that mission is to help as many people as I can to understand your blueprint, to help people save their marriages, to help people raise their children in a way that is going to serve them long term, is not going to take on our generational traumas and our generational programming and conditioning. And again, this is not a blame game. You cannot change what you don't know. So my intention for this podcast is for people to ask me anything they want. There's nothing I haven't gone through to get to here. There's nothing. I'm transparent. I'm open. I'm honest. I'm raw. I'm probably too raw for some. And that's another reason a lot of people steer away, is because they actually can't be around your light, because you shine on their darkness, and that would then change the way they see themselves and the way they see their lives and their family. So my mission is to help as many people as I can understand why they do what they do, why they react the way they do, why they pick the partners that they do, why they keep cyclic behaviour going. That is my intention. That is my mission. And I know that everything that happened to me that night, that accident, was all part of this. Because I would never have left the ambulance service, because it was my identity. That was the reason I crashed so hard. I lost my identity. I didn't want to be here anymore, because I didn't see myself as anything other than Tash. Tash the Amber. I had no idea of everything else I was great at. And that does make me emotional, because I spent 30 years, or actually 49 years, living behind masks, putting up with crap behaviour, being made to feel worthless. But I attracted this because that's what I knew and that's what I thought I deserved. But now that I know different, I will never settle again. I will never abandon myself or my inner child ever again. The things I've learned about myself and my past in the last 4 years has answered a lot of questions. There was a lot of suppression, but healing, it was the best thing I ever did. So my podcast is not about rescuing and fixing. It is for people who want to step up, own their stuff, take off the masks, look at the part you're playing in your own suffering. And like I said, it's not your fault. You were handed that blueprint, but it is your responsibility. Absolutely is your responsibility to heal, not just for yourself, but for your family and future generations. I look forward to connecting with everybody on my podcast, Drop the Mask with Tash. And as I said, you can ask me anything. And this is just a very general, hello, this is what I'm here for. Can't wait to connect with you all and help as many people as I can. Thank you for listening. I look forward to hearing and seeing you all soon.